Hopefully we can see the fight between Nietzsche and Bruce Lee. Who do you think is going to win, right? Well, in our hearts and our minds, who wins is Bruce Lee, and he says, be water, my friend.
Change your life on purpose.
Greetings, humans. I'm Nathan Pasajai. I studied philosophy in grad school, and I was obsessed with trying to figure out how to make it make sense for like how to live your life, how to improve your life. Not all philosophy is like that. Sometimes it's about getting it right. Sometimes it's about pure thought. I like that stuff too, but I was obsessed with trying to use these ideas to try to help people change their life on purpose. Have a class about it.
Change your life on purpose. Link in the description.
Today, we're going to do the part 2 on Nietzsche, and this is the idea of the metamorphosis of the spirit. This is not Kafka's metamorphosis, where a person turns into a bug. This is the metamorphosis of somebody who becomes a camel, and then a lion, he fights a dragon, and then becomes a child. Kind of strange, right? But it's a really famous passage, and today we're not going to be concerned with getting it right. And you can fight me if you think I don't get it right. I welcome this. It's more about how can we use this idea to make life make more sense, right? And I'm going to give an opposing idea from another great philosopher, Bruce Lee, right? And he did study philosophy, and we'll kind of take a little quick quote from Bruce Lee and kind of throw it as the opposite side of the path that I'm going to tell you about that I see in this metamorphosis of the spirit. One of the reasons that I talk about this is that I will often talk to people who have reached a high level in whatever it is that they do, and they will kind of have no path, right? Bruce Lee said this, the best style is no style, right? And people will see things like, let's say, music theory as limitations. I was hanging out with a composer, and I would always be asking her, like, hey, what chord is this? What key is that in? What's the rhythm or something like that? I'll always be asking for some basic information about the music. And she'd always be responding, I'm not thinking about it that way. And I have another guy that I write songs with, and I'll always ask him the same things, but he's not thinking about theory. He's thinking about this abstract geometrical interface that he sees, and he's using that to write his music, right? So there are these people that are on this master level, and they seem to be like, no, it's not about that. It's just about, something completely different than the way that people normally climb this ladder. Now today, I hope to give you the idea that maybe going about things through the front door and climbing the mountain all by yourself, step by step by step, isn't actually a bad idea, despite what masters tell you. And the reason is those masters got to the top of the mountain by climbing. They didn't take a helicopter, right? So hopefully this will start a fight. The metamorphosis of the spirit has 3 stages. And yeah, I'll read the passage. This is from the Walter Kaufman translation. 3 metamorphoses of the spirit I name for you. How the spirit becomes a camel, and the camel a lion, and the lion finally a child. There is much that is heavy for the spirit, the strong, reverent spirit that would bear much, but the heavy things are part of its strength. It wants what is most difficult. Some of the most difficult things for the spirit are to accept truth that challenges pride, to show one's folly, to mock one's wisdom, to give up one's cause when it triumphs, to climb high mountains and tempt the tempter, to live on the acorns and grasses of knowledge and suffer hunger for the sake of truth, to be sick and send home the comforters, to dive into dirty water when it is the water of truth, and to love those who despise us. All of this, the strong spirit wants to carry heavy burdens, takes upon itself, like the camel that kneels down and wants to be well loaded, and then it heads for the desert. But in the loneliest desert, the second metamorphosis occurs. The spirit becomes a lion who wants to conquer his freedom and be lord in his own desert. he seeks out his last master. He wants to fight him and his last god. For victory, he wants to fight the great dragon. Who is the great dragon that the spirit no longer wants to call Lord or God? It is the dragon called Thou Shalt, You Will. The dragon glitters with golden scales, and on each scale glitters a Thou Shalt. All the values of 1,000 years shine on those scales, and the most powerful of all dragons says, all values have already been created, and I represent them all. There shall be no more I will. The lion needs to say no to that dragon. He wants to create new values, but even the lion cannot yet do that. What the lion can do is create freedom for himself so that he can create new values. To win that freedom, he must say no to duty, to received values, even to what is considered holy. But what can the child do that even the lion could not? Why must the lion become a child? The child is innocence and forgetting, a new beginning, a game, a self-propelling wheel, a first movement, a sacred yes. Yes, for the game of creating, my brothers, a sacred yes is needed. The spirit now wills its own will, and he who had been lost to the world now conquers his own world. So what's going on here? We have 3 stages and 4 beasts. We have a camel, right? The load-bearing spirit that wants to have heavy things placed onto its back. It wants to get to the end of the day and say to itself, I did something. I accomplished something. We can feel that, right? It also wants to get to the end of a 4-year degree and graduate with a cape on and say, look what I did. Look, and throw the hat in the air and take graduation pictures. It wants to run a marathon, right? Or it wants to, do 10 pull-ups, or it wants, whatever it is, it wants to achieve some sort of an arbitrary goal that's kind of hard, right? Hard for who? Hard for you, right? It's hard for you, and you went a little bit further than you thought you could, right? You carried heavy stuff, right? You carried heavy stuff. Good job, right? What's next? The lion. Now, lions are not really into hard work. They're not into carrying heavy stuff. Lions famously sleep around, yawn, look cool. They're not into this carrying heavy stuff thing. Lions learn how to say no. But the camel says, yes, give me all of these tasks. Put all this stuff on my back, and I'm going to carry it for as far as I can. I'm going to do a good job, right? I'm going to be a good hard worker. The lion, however, says no, but the lion is also this apex predator. So you want to become a lion. How? Be a camel first. What does that mean? Let's find out. So we have another beast that shows up in here. We have the dragon. And according to the passage, you don't become the dragon. The dragon is this enemy of the lion, right? The dragon is the one that is the great system that is imposing things upon you, right? And it may be the thing that was imposed upon you when you were the camel. Let's say it's music, and you learn music theory. Music theory is actually quite arbitrary, right? They go back and they say, these are the things that Johann Sebastian Bach did when he composed. He followed these rules, and based on these rules, if I'm a music theory teacher, I can grade your work and say, you're following Bach's rules or you're not following Bach's rules. And I can give you a grade that's based on your counterpoint, your voice leading, your ability to follow Bach's rules. It's a hard thing to do. It's a good thing to learn. But at some point, you don't want to just become an AI that can produce Bach's music. You want to throw that system away in some way. I'm going to give you the idea that you have to take that system onto your shoulders and carry it before you can successfully rebel against it. You have to have a true confrontation with the dragon before you can say, I am going to defeat you. You have to know your enemy better than your enemy knows itself. You have to like take down the system from inside the system. There's a famous quote among the anarchists that's the master's tools cannot be used to take down the master's house or something like that. And it's the silliest quote in the world because, yes, the master's tools clearly can be used to take down the master's house, right? But it's something I heard repeated so often. I'm suggesting, and it's not fun, but I'm suggesting before you become a rebel, take the system onto your back and carry it, right? Learn math, lift heavy weights, do progressive overload, do a master's degree, do a PhD, do something hard. And when you're doing it, realize that there's so much stuff involved with it that's stupid that you don't want to do. And you're doing it anyway. And you're carrying that heavy load and you're like, this is stupid. I want to never do it again. Aha. Yeah. It is stupid. You want to never do it again. That's when you become the lion. The lion says this is stupid and I never want to do it again, right? Being the camel before you become the lion is awesome. And the reason is you already know how to do all of these things that you are now rebelling against. So you're rebelling against them from a position of knowledge. You have this true confrontation with the dragon that says, you will do this, you must do this. And you say, no, I'm going to learn to go my own way and I'm going to say no to you. And then what is the final evolution? The final evolution is not a beast, it's finally a human. It's the child, right? The child is the final evolution. Isn't that interesting? Now, how can this be true? In my Buddhist studies program, we would be arguing about enlightenment often. And one of the things that people always bring up is, okay, so if these concepts, these attachments, these categories, all of these things that the mind are made of, they get us all wrapped up into existence. And so the spirit cannot achieve enlightenment because it's too wrapped up into these elements of reality. Why isn't an infant child who doesn't have any of these categories, when they look out at the world, they can't even tell what your face is? How come they're not enlightened, right? I mean, one answer to this is to accept all of these categories and get yourself all deeply wound up into reality, and then to renounce all of that, right? And this is what I think we have here in these three stages, these three metamorphoses of the spirit, is to say, first, you got to do that camel work. You got to put something heavy on your back and you got to just carry it over and over again, day in, day out. Discipline equals freedom. How? Because you become the lion at some point and you learn how to say no to that system. And this is why masters typically start developing their own schools, because they have climbed to the top of whatever their knowledge base is, and they've started to see that there's problems in it, and that they have something to contribute. You criticize, and then you contribute. Now, of course, it doesn't just go, right? Of course. And these things are happening in different realms of your life all the time. You're a beginner here and you're advanced over here, right? But the ability to get to a creative point probably should have some sort of a root in digging into what is the tradition of this knowledge base and how do I climb the traditional ladder of it, right? And the thing that's cool about this is it really does get addictive when you humble yourself to some kind of a system and you put that system on your back. Now, Hinduism says that we are in the Kali Yuga. We are the furthest away from enlightenment possible. And in the, I believe it's the Satya Yuga, we would be the closest to enlightenment. So basically, all of knowledge would just be pouring into us all the time, and we would have perfect access to truth. We're not in that time now. All we have is arbitrary systems, such as science, that come in from our ability to observe the world and kind of like apply mathematics and statistics to it. For example, if my kid asks me, is this medicine going to make me feel better? I say, it probably is, based on what I think is wrong with you and how well we think that this medicine is going to help with what's wrong with you, right? I can't say, you are now healed, like Jesus did when he lays hands on people and heals the sick. That's a completely different situation, right? So what we do when we become a camel is we give ourselves over to an imperfect system that is maybe going to produce good results. It's probably going to produce good results, right? And that's hard to do because many of us as Westerners, as nihilists, are starting out feeling like a lion or a child when we have not yet done the camel work. And I'll give you the opposing view, and this is something that is an awesome idea. So hopefully we can see the fight between Nietzsche and Bruce Lee. Who do you think is going to win, right? Well, in our hearts and our minds, who wins is Bruce Lee, and he says, be water, my friend, right? So I'll read you the famous quote. Empty your mind, be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it into a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend. And that's how he was describing not just martial arts, but life. And his view of martial arts came from first ladening himself with these systems and becoming a master of these very specifically laid out disciplines, and then throwing away the playbook and saying the best form is no form. The best style is no style. Don't be a slave to any of these things. But I argue he was first a camel. He was first somebody who was getting his belts and going up in the levels and trying to advance through a system that was already created. Now, I'm a Westerner and a nihilist, and me saying, you do a system, obey a system, hurts. It hurts my chest and my heart and everything. Like, I grew up listening to Rage Against the Machine. I don't want to say, go and listen to a system and like do a system, like take this thing onto your shoulders. But when I think about it pragmatically, that's what we do when we accept medical science. We say, here's an imperfect system that's better than nothing. I'm going to learn about anatomy and physiology. It doesn't give me the ability to heal people like Jesus. It gives me the ability to diagnose. This is probably what we say is wrong with you. You have a virus. We have this idea of what that is. I think that these things help you based on science, which is right usually, right? That's not perfect, but I give myself to that perfect system because I don't have access to certainty. I don't have access to pure metaphysical truth, unfortunately, right? Maybe, I mean, if I get it, I will tell you, right? Then at some point, you become the critical one. You look at all of this stuff that you have taken on and you say no to that and no to that. Yeah, I know that this is a popular idea and I don't believe that. What? You don't believe that? Yeah, I believe all of these other things, but this one I don't believe. Oh my God, you can't not believe that. Oh, let's fight, dragon, right? And that's when you get into the fight with the dragon because you already did the camel work. You accepted the establishment and you fought your way up through the corporate ladder or whatever, right? I hate this idea. I really hate this idea, but I think it's right. And this is kind of the boring knowledge that you get from old people is often like, hey, you're not going to like this, but it actually makes sense, right? And I don't like it, but I feel like it makes sense. Finally, once you have established order, you can destroy that order. And then you can find pure creative chaos by submitting yourself to this heavy load that you have carried, right? Arbitrary goals are great. I want to run a marathon. Why? What happens when you finish the marathon? Nothing, right? But maybe you have changed yourself in the process of doing that, and you want that change. I want to bench press 100 kilograms. I want to be able to do 15 pull-ups or something, right? Why? Does that mean you've broken a world record? No. It's not really a big deal for people who do this kind of thing professionally, but if it's a big deal for you, it's a big deal, right? So I run into very often this idea that all systems are bad and the flipping of the system is inherently good. I think that it's more true to say accepting the system onto your shoulders and carrying that system, whatever that system is, some arbitrary goal, some knowledge base or something. Once you start to carry that far enough, you get to the point where your flipping of the system, your rejection of the system is from a place of creative power, and you can offer something to humanity as a result of your rebellion. So I wish that for you. Find some way to be a camel. And if you're interested in trying to carry heavy things, I have a course called
Change Your Life on Purpose.
It starts, always. And it will help me pay tuition for my kid, my creative child. So, yeah. See you on the other side of that. Link is in the description as we say
Peace.